Good afternoon. How many of you have been traveling down a roadway and gotten stuck behind a car going well under the speed limit? I'd be willing to bet that 9 times out of 10, the person behind the wheel of that car is elderly. Elderly drivers usually aren't even aware that they are taking up other people's time. This is why we must develop a system that allows us to decipher between the elderly who are no longer fit to drive and those who are still capable despite their age. I personally have witnessed both sides of the fence. On one hand, I have a grandmother who is 89 years old, and we decided that she was not capable of driving a few years ago. But on the other hand, I have a grandfather at the same age who is still very capable of driving a car and still drives himself to work 5 days a week, which really helps me to understand that this topic depends on the person's individual capabilities. The United States as a whole should consider creating periodic driving tests to measure the driving capabilities of citizens of the age 65 or older. Today, firstly, I will discuss the problems that arise when elderly drivers begin to clog up the roadways. Secondly, I will discuss possible solutions to this problem. In order to find a solution to this exceedingly growing problem, we must first understand what's at the core of the problem and look at the facts and statistics of what elderly drivers may be doing to our roadways and interstates. Every human ages differently. Some lose coordination skills at a shockingly young age, some lose their memory, and some continue to go about the same schedule that they always have without any problem. I can always remember my grandfather being sharp as a nail and never seeming to lose his edge. To this day, as an 89-year-old man, he wakes up at 5 a.m. and goes to the gym and then proceeds to drive himself to work. This happens 5 days a week and has never caused a problem. However, not everyone continues to stay mentally sharp and aware the same way my grandfather does. Some citizens begin to lose their ability to focus on their surroundings at a young age. The American Automobile Association provided an alarming statistic when they said more than 75% of drivers aged 65 or older report using one or more medications, but less than one-third acknowledge awareness of the potential impact these medications have on their driving performance. This quote is extremely nerve-wracking, as a lot of medications have side effects that can impair one's driving abilities, yet many senior citizens may not even notice the change in the way their body behaves behind the wheel. I'm sure that admitting that you're losing your abilities to do an everyday task is a difficult thing to do for an elderly person, but sometimes it's best to admit it to yourself before it is proven to you while attempting to do one of these tasks. An elderly driver has the same expectations and responsibilities as any other driver on the road, and if they cannot keep up with these expectations, then maybe it's time to discuss handing over the keys. Eric Lawrence from the Detroit Free Press said in the USA Today article, "The key is to monitor suspect drivers, including riding along as a passenger, and to be willing to address the issue with any driver who is a potential risk." This quote is extremely important as it helps to understand that a lot of times the elderly driver will not admit their faults on their own, so maybe it's best to monitor them and evaluate them and see if it's time to consider other options of transportation. In order to keep our roadways safe, the decision making should not be left up to elderly drivers, but possibly to the state instead. It's easy to see that elderly drivers on our roadways can be a hazard, but not all of these senior citizens are incapable of driving. In order to solve this problem, we will have to rely on our state governments to assist in determining who is capable. But how do states begin to deal with this problem? Well, there are a few places in America that have been taking their own approaches to the problem at hand. For instance, smartmotorist.com explained what one state was doing when they said, California, which requires retesting for anyone involved in a fatal crash or 3 or more crashes in 1 year, requires drivers over 70 to retest if they are involved in 2 or more crashes in a year. This is a good approach to the problem, but you also have to consider that there are many crashes that are not documented, which leaves us wondering how to properly analyze each individual's driving skills. Another approach to the issue could be handled through the help of physicians. SmartMotors.com decided what another state has proposed to help the problem. They said, Pennsylvania is one state that has a physician's reporting law requiring physicians to report disabilities that may affect their driving ability. Some physicians, however, are reluctant to jeopardize their relationship with the patient by making such a referral. This quote really explains the difficulty of the situation. Even when the law may say the physician must report any warning signs, these physicians will still be cautious to not jeopardize their own business or their personal relationships with patients. So what really is the best measure? Perhaps the best method to solve this problem is to rely on our state's local DMVs. The Department of Motor Vehicles is responsible for deciding who gets a driver's license. In my opinion, they should also be in charge of deciding if the driver's license should be taken away after a certain age. Robert Davis provided a quote in his USA Today article that really assesses the problem. He quoted, "The only measure scientifically proven to lower the rate of fatal crashes involving elderly drivers is forcing the seniors to appear at a motor vehicle department in person to renew their licenses. This is the proposition that I believe will be most successful in deciding whether senior citizens should be behind the wheel or not. It is a reasonable solution that allows those who are capable of driving to prove themselves as that, and also allows the state to figure out who is no longer capable of operating a vehicle safely. Dr. Dieter Deby cited what another country is doing to solve the problem in her article on psychologytoday.com, when she stated, "The Danish renew their licenses periodically after 70 and annually after age 80. Renewals require a medical visit, and the physician may opt, when concerned, to send some seniors for a road test. This is an extremely smart way to handle the situation at hand. If America would combine these processes with the ones that some states are using, it could eventually save many lives and help both our roadways and our senior citizens to be safer. If all these methods were taken into consideration by our state and national governments, we could easily reach a conclusion on how to decide if elderly people over a certain age should be allowed to drive." Today, I first discussed the issues at hand about elderly drivers and the consequences of leaving these individuals responsible to decide on their own if they're capable of driving anymore. Secondly, I discussed many possible solutions to the problem that other states or countries have come up with. In conclusion, I'd like for you to consider the safety of your loved ones and the precautions that should be taken to keep those close to you safe, whether elderly or not. After all, driving is a privilege, not a right, and I believe that all citizens should be required to prove themselves capable of driving periodically once they reach a certain age. If all these things are taken into consideration, I believe we could create a safer driving experience for everyone on the road. Thank you.